started? Oh, we started. So yeah, so welcome. My name is Mahmoud Abdelghany. I work for the Netherlands Forensics Institute, the NFE, and I'm not going to talk about the NFE per se, but yeah. So I'm going to talk about some stuff that has to do with dates and times and such. So what motivated me to do this? If you've ever programmed, and most of you probably have, right? You've dealt with dates and times, and it gets annoying sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes your mind gets blown, right? Like weird stuff happens, and over the years I collected some ideas, and I thought, hey, it would be nice to do a talk about that. So for a change, I created an agenda of what I want to talk about. I'm gonna try, and so yeah, I'm gonna talk about some APIs. I'm gonna talk about the meaning of dates, because that's different for everybody, I guess. Formatting dates, I'm gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about the reality of software. I call it vacuum space, because I like the name, actually. I'm gonna talk about time zones, which is a very interesting topic. And by the way, each of these topics can feel like a 2-hour talk, right? So this is gonna be like 2 minutes per topic or whatever, and hopefully nobody will hate me for it. Let's see, silver bullets, right? Like there is, everybody says there's like one solution that fits them all, right? One solution to rule them all. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit, and this is really a little bit, about forensics, because why not, right? I'm going to bring all of you over to the dark side, or the side of the light. Then some fun stuff, and then hopefully we'll have I guess 1 minute for questions. Right, so this is my regular disclaimer. Don't believe anything I say. Test it, double check it, double test it, everything. There are people that are experts. I now work in forensics, and the word expert has a different meaning, so it has a legal meaning, so I'm really not an expert. So bear that in mind. And especially for this talk, I have a couple of more disclaimers, actually. And this is another one, right? So because I'm going to talk about some APIs, I'm going to make kind of fun of some APIs, right? But you should never forget, API design is very, very difficult. It's very hard, right? This is a slide from Devox, before it was Devox, from Josh Blog. And it's an amazing talk. It's called Effective APIs. You should all watch it. And he ends with this, right? Like it's very important, but it's very hard, right? And you shouldn't really do it in, it's not a solo sport or whatever. So, so everybody should watch that talk. Another thing is, right, I like memes. They make me feel young or whatever. I don't know, but I like memes. So another thing is, right, like after the fact, like all of you work in Scrum Agile, right? In retrospective, everybody is so wise and knows everything that went wrong, but like 2 days before, nobody even had any inkling of anything going wrong, right? So that's another disclaimer, like we're talking after the fact, right? When people designed these APIs, they were the best ideas ever. But now we are smarter, or we try to act smarter or whatever. So yeah, a colleague of mine makes these drawings. I love the drawings, so they're all throughout the presentation. He does them for the sprints we do. Our project has a logo. It's an elephant, right? And this had something to do with time and Alice in Wonderland and whatever. It's cool. Doesn't matter. Right. So let's see. I see that I spent 4 minutes on the intro and the disclaimers, and this is not going well. But anyways, so where do you start, right? Is it showing? Yeah. Oh, this is not showing very well. So what does new date do, right? It gives you the current moment in time, or the current date in time. And right, like a lot of people accept this, but it's weird, right? It's like you can never test this, actually. This is a very weird constructor for anything, right? It's a constructor that does weird stuff. A step further. I think I mentioned this during in the abstract or whatever, right? So the constructor for new date, you have another constructor for new date that takes in a long, right? So the default value for any long is a 0. So what happens when you give it a 0? It gives you 1970. It doesn't give you now. And again, we all accept this. But again, this is very weird. This is very weird behavior. Let's take it further. Let's see. So it takes a long, so you can give it a negative number. I hope everybody tried this. You should try it if you haven't. So what does it do? If you give it a negative number, it goes back in time. Interesting, cool. How far back can we go in time? Another drawing of my lovely colleague. He's a brilliant programmer, by the way, but he also does drawings, or the other way around, doesn't matter. So let's see. So if I try this huge negative number, how far can I go? I can go this far, the year 1, the day 1, the month 1, midnight, right? Which is 1 AD. Cool. Cool. Can we go even further, right? Another number. Yes, we can go. We still, so this number is larger, or it's a larger negative number, I guess, right? But it still gives you the same thing. But it's actually not AD, it's BC, right? Because they didn't think about it. Yeah, they did think about it, but the date class doesn't have eras and that kind of stuff. So if you go even further, you get 2. You're now in the year 2, which is the year 2 BC. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, this is a negative number. I'm going to skip this one because time. And this is not a negative number. You all know this, so I'm going to skip it. Sorry. So this one is really fun, for me at least. If you do this one, you get this. And if you do this one plus 1, or minus 1 then, because it's a negative number, you get this, right? You skip like a week, right? And the reason for that is because this is the date when they changed the calendars. They changed from Gregorian to Julian, from Julian to Gregorian, whatever. And this always rubbed me the wrong way, because the date class has so many problems, right? But somebody took the time to implement this, right? It's like excellent, excellent, really, right? And again, like we said at the beginning, API design is hard. We're making fun of people after the fact. At the time, this was a brilliant decision. Now, not so much, right? We talk a lot about epochs, right? But what is an epoch, actually? Or when is the epoch? Let's start with this one. And I'm not going to ask the audience, because the answer is actually which epoch, right? You have a lot of epochs, right? You have an NTFS one, and you have an Excel one, which for some reason starts at day or month 0. We don't know if it's a day or a month, because, it's America and America. So yeah, you have the Unix one. Everybody knows the Unix one. You have the Amiga one, for some reason, right? Apple has to be different, of course, right? And the funny thing about the Apple one, they implemented this one recently, because the story goes, the legend goes, that Steve Jobs didn't like this kind of stuff. So when he died, they implemented it, like to spite him or whatever. I don't know, but I really have no idea. But so yeah, this is another one, and this is one I just invented, right? So that's the idea. You don't have one epoch. You can't just say it's epoch, right? Others, whatever. So why should you care, or why should I? Why do I care? Let's put it that way. The reason I care, yes, because values have meaning. All values have meaning. So this is from a Stack Overflow post. These are memory values, right? So in C, C++, any low-level language, a lot of the time you just fill memory with specific values. This is done for debugging, or to know if this value has been written to or not, and that kind of stuff. So if you see a memory value, which is, I don't know, beefcake, for example, the 4th, 5th one from the top, right? Oh, this has a meaning, right? This is not random, right? And the same goes for dates, right? So this is a C# example for C#. The epoch for C#, or the default date for C# is the first of the 1 BC, basically, right? 180, sorry, 80, right? So yeah, why should you care? Because when you come across those dates, you should think about it. Did somebody really fill in like the 1st of January 1970 at midnight? Really, did he make the purchase on that date? Or is it more likely that a default value was used for this field, right? So yeah, some people care about this more than others. In my line of work, I care about this a lot. So I just thought about sharing this with you fine folk, because sharing is caring. Another drawing. Excellent. Right, formatting. how well? I have enough time, I think, to do all of it. So, thank you. So yeah, if you've used Excel, you understand this. If you haven't used Excel, you probably understand this as well because you're software developers and you understand how somebody can make something this magnificent. Anyways, so formatting. So date formatting. We just talked about, America. So that's one example. Like month. Is it month day? Is it day month year? Is it month day year? Day month year? Right. And this is an XKCD thing, right? And so yeah, at a certain point they start to make fun of it, but it's not really. Yeah, it's possible, I guess. Right? Why not? Right? If you look to the first three lines only, 2.5 lines, I guess, I've seen all of those before. Most of you probably have, right? But when you see the date, and especially if it's ambiguous, like the 2nd of February, right, the 10th of October, you need to know this beforehand, and this can go pretty far. So yeah, and this is from Wikipedia, right? So this is the world, right? And here you can see like the colors of which group hates which other group, I guess, or something like that. And this is the yeah. Sorry, I make a lot of jokes when I'm nervous, and I'm nervous. So thank you for laughing. Anyways, so yeah. So this is the table, like day, month, year, month, date, year, right? And my favorite thing about this is that there are countries that have more than one standard, like the United States at the bottom there. They have like month, day, year, and year, month, date. And it's like, so that's within one country, right? They're not even fighting with other countries, they're fighting with themselves. So which is interesting, I guess, if that's your kind of thing, right? So this is, DALL-E generated this for me. So there's an excellent article by Heinz, the Java Specialist newsletter. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. It's excellent. It's called Wonky Dating, and he talks about some dating stuff. About some date stuff, right? Parsing that stuff. And I just asked DALL-E now, like generate a picture for me. So the first one. So this one isn't from the article, but everybody knows this one, right? So you create a date format. Sorry. And you give it a date, and you say, hey, parse this for me. And it parses it, but doesn't parse correctly. Why? Because we used lowercase m for months instead of uppercase m. And lowercase is minutes, right? And this is annoying, I guess, right? And when you look into it further, right, there's a whole ISO standard for this, right? And I didn't know, for example, that you also had uppercase Y, for example. You have uppercase D. Who knew that one, right? So there's a whole standard. This isn't the whole standard, by the way. This is like one paragraph of the whole standard, right? Why? I have no idea. Probably the people that made this don't even know what software is, something like that. I honestly have no idea. So yeah, this is the common one. This is the Heinz one, the wonky dating one. I'll give you a moment, and I'm gonna drink some water. So here, of course, you can see they used the correct uppercase, lowercase letters, but they didn't include the hyphens in the formatting, right? And as a result, you give it a 2024 date, and you get a 2023 date, and it's not even the same date. And how this is actually parsed is actually pretty funny. To me, it's pretty funny, right? Right? So year, you get the year, that's no problem. Then you get the month, and it takes -0. And month starts at 1, so 0 is actually going backwards. So it's December, so it becomes December, right? Now, day becomes 1, because it's followed by a hyphen, and it always terminates at a hyphen or a colon, I think, or a comma. There's a couple of signs, and it just terminates. Then you have the hour, which is -0, because you have, HH, so -0. Then you get the minute, which is 2 hyphen, and you terminate at the hyphen, right? Then you get the second, which is the funny one, which is -03, and it doesn't terminate because it's the last one in your format, so it just keeps going, right? So you get -03. So -3, right? So you go back in time again, so it becomes 57 seconds, and you subtract 1 from the minute, And that's how you go back in time, by formatting your date excellently, right? So this one actually does have a solution, for date format at least. The date formatter has an option, set lenient, and you can just disable it and it will crash, right? And when I was researching this one, I looked, of course, at the DateTime formatter, the newer one. And that one doesn't have most of these problems. It's very, 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 very strict. It's annoyingly strict, actually. Right? It's at the least, I think, even if you give it like a partial, if you try to parse a partial date from like a whole string, if you have a DateTime string and you only want like the day or whatever, it doesn't do that well as well. But don't take my word for that, because I didn't test it that much. And the exceptions aren't that great, in my opinion. They're not very friendly, right? But still, the whole uppercase, lowercase thing, it just works. It's because that's a user problem from the perspective of the API gods or whatever, right? So yeah, you can fix that. But enough about that. Vacuum space. Like I said, I like the name, but the idea here is, so this is something every software developer knows, right? Like, your software doesn't run, in a vacuum, right? It's not your hello world thingy that runs and that's it, right? It usually communicates with other software, and it usually does more things than only the hello world. But we always forget that, right? And I have a use case here. The first one, at least, is something, another drawing. The first one is something that's from my personal experience. The second one I made up. I might skip the second one, even though it's more interesting, but we'll see. So this was something, we had a Java service, and it was communicating with a Python service. And we had a DateTime, like a proper DateTime, like a post-Joda time DateTime, like the good one, right? And we were serializing it, sending it to Python. Python was deserializing it, and it was a very complex use case, but for this, the only thing you do is you put the same date you just deserialized, you put it in a different field and serialize it and send it back to Java. And when it came back, it wasn't the same, right? And it's something very simple, actually, and it took some time to debug, but it was something very simple. And basically, the standard library of Python, the DateTime thing from the standard library of Python, it only supports up to microseconds, right? It has a different resolution than the DateTime thing in Java. And you don't think about that kind of stuff. You just think, the Python developers are as smart as the Java developers or whatever, but that's not the case, right? So it's a lossy conversion. And as I'm saying here at the bottom part, right, this might be a problem. It might not be a problem. It depends on your application, right? In my case, for example, it wasn't a problem. But I did spend a lot of time debugging this and trying to understand it and hacking everything to get it to work. It doesn't work, right? It doesn't work with the standard libraries, at least. You probably have different libraries that do make this work. But the beauty of standard libraries is that not everybody, but a lot of APIs support the standard libraries, but they don't support the library that you just made for yourself in like 2 minutes or whatever, right? So yeah, so that's a good one. For me, at least. So this is one out of my experience. This one I made up. It's a good one. Let's see. I have 21 minutes. Okay. So this is a place in Antarctica. It's called Casey Station. They do research there, apparently. I have no idea what kind of research they do there. Nobody knows. Wikipedia knows, but I was too lazy to read Wikipedia. So, but I did steal the picture from Wikipedia, at least. So they do research there. For our use case, they're going to do research about penguins, right? Why? I mean, Antarctica, probably penguins, whatever, right? Let's see. So, right. So this is a view. So this is Google Maps, right? This is Casey Station, and for our use case, we have three research posts, research stations, whatever. I have no idea how this works in reality, but just, believe me. So you have 3 points where you're collecting data, and that data gets transmitted to some kind of database. I think I have that. Yeah. So you're collecting the data, and you're sending it to the database, and then researchers can do funny stuff with it, and the world becomes a better place for penguins, I guess, right? And as you can see, they have different Java versions, but very recent Java versions. They have slightly different, or they have different, not slightly, they have different Ubuntu versions. But that shouldn't be a problem because our program is very simple. This is the only thing our program does, right? You get an event, and you say store event, and you say, I want now, right? And this is the good one. This is not the date one, right? Because I saw somebody over here looking at me funny when I mentioned date. Okay, so this is a good one, right? Local date time, right? And for my use case, at least, I actually used this code, right? Because I was too lazy to change the dates and times of the machines themselves to simulate Antarctica, right? I just thought, this should be the same, technically speaking, right? But full disclosure and stuff. And if you want to reproduce this, then use I did this with the code below. Let's see. So at a certain point, we get a lot of logs, right? Like events have been logged, right? And something interesting starts to happen. So first off, if you look at the minutes, there's 10 minutes between every station, which is, I think, the acceptable thing, because if you look at the map, the distance is the same, right? Oh yeah, and we're recording the migration of the penguins from this point to this point. Whatever. Something very simple. I have no idea if penguins even migrate, but for this use case, they do. But if you look here at the time, right, the gray one, it's 3 hours ahead, right? So that's weird. And we should research that. We should look into that. Another cool drawing, right? So basically, time travel. Like the penguins are time traveling, I guess, right? So that's my idea. So what's the problem here? And I have enough time, so I'm gonna go into that. So I'm gonna take a detour and come back to that. So I have to explain this first, and then I can go back. If you never watched this talk, computer file talk about time zones, it's excellent. It's like 5 minutes or something. And it basically tells you to never do this yourself. Just trust in the people that wrote the APIs, which is true for a large part of it, but you have to understand how the APIs work. That's the caveat here, I guess. Right. Let's see. Somebody tweeted this, but I couldn't find the original tweet, so I kind of removed the name because I can't confirm if it's a real tweet or not, but I really like it, so just put it up there. And my apologies for anybody from 1935. So time zones, right? So what's the time zone for Antwerp? Which seems like a very, I saw entrepreneur there. Excellent. Antwerp, right? Yeah. For the people who weren't here for the previous talk, there was a talk about AI, right? And how AI is so wonderful and everybody should test it and use it and whatever. And yeah, okay. So anyways. So what's the time zone? And it seems like a very simple question, actually. And I'm not going to do show of hands or whatever, right? But what you might not think of is the correct answer for the question is a different question. Is when are you talking about? Or which version, right? Sorry, right? We have this idea that time zones are static. They never change. Or they don't, it doesn't matter if they change or not, let's put it differently, right? But it actually does matter, right? Because if a time zone yesterday was 1 hour ahead, I'm gonna screw this up, but if it was 1 hour ahead, I cannot talk about 24 hours ago, right? As if it's the same time. What time is it now? It's almost 1:30, right? I can't talk about 24 hours ago, it was 1:30 and this and this and this happened. It was a different time zone, right? And this is, I'm not explaining this correctly, but bear with me, right? Slides will explain this better. And as you might think, we're talking about standards and the API gods or whatever, somebody thought about this, right? We actually have databases of time zones and the changes that happen in time zones. And this is very important because you might think, okay, so we're just all gonna, do stuff with the new time zone, yeah, but some stuff already happened in the old time zone. And when I'm talking about it, I need to talk about it within that time zone. I said time zone a lot in the last minute or whatever, but anyway, right? And when you're trying to compare the event from yesterday to the event of today, this is a different time zone than this, right? You need to change it to be something that you compare to each other. So yeah, we have database for this. And we have huge database for this. So this is one of the databases, this IANA. No idea what it stands for, and it goes all the way back to the 90s until 2024. And if you can, no, I'm not going to do a pointer thing, but if you look there, you can see 2023, for example, and you can see 2023D, right? So 2023 had 4 different versions of the time zone database. And nobody, and I mean nobody, okay, that's not nobody, but I didn't know this, right, until I did some research for this talk. I kind of knew it, but I always assumed it just worked. No, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't just work. So yeah, how does it work in Java, right? So there's an excellent page on the Oracle page from Java telling you which version of the database was introduced in which version of Java. I didn't know this page existed until like a couple of weeks ago, right? So yeah. And there are some tools that are not included in the JDK for some reason that can update your databases, because these databases are static and they don't get updated by themselves, right? And these are the tools I could find, one from Oracle, one from Azul. Azul claims it's open source, but I couldn't find the source, so if somebody can find the source, please send it to me. Yeah, so let's see. Getting back to our case, so the first thing I did to debug my problem that I created myself was to add time zones to my logs. And indeed, I see that the first one has a time zone plus 11, and the second one has a time zone plus 8. So that's weird. That shouldn't happen. It's like the same like area in Antarctica. So yeah, the first thing I did, right, was like, okay, which version of the database is on this machine, right? For every machine. I didn't put the pictures for every machine here, but yeah, and you get this back, right? Like so, it's a 2023D version, and you can update to the 2024B, right? That's the latest one. And if you use the same command, but then min upgrade, I think, or update or something, right? It will upgrade it for you if you have an internet connection. And when you look it up in the page, this is so funny, so I highlighted it. But when you read the first one, somebody changed the time zone in Greenland. Yeah, second one, Vostok, somebody changed the time zone. But the third one, you can taste the frustration. It's like they changed the fucking time zone 5 times since 2020, and I don't know. That's how I interpret it, at least, right? So yeah, the time zones change, right? And it's one is the Java versions are within a year, I guess, or within a year and a half or something. So yeah, you have to know that. Yeah. By the way, if anybody has any questions, I don't know how questions work. Most of the talk didn't have questions that I attended. Anybody has any questions, just shout, because I doubt we have time at the end. Any questions? I still have like 30 slides, but any questions? Okay. All right. And I can't really see anything from the lights, so if you just shout or throw something or whatever, right? So yeah, silver bullets, right? Again, DALL-E generated this. There's an excellent article from John Skeet about this. John Skeet is the guy who on Stack Overflow has like the top score, right? I used to think he was a Microsoft bot, or no, Google bot. He's from Google. But then I saw him at a conference. He's a real person. He's a real person. True. What made it worse is his picture. Okay, let's just... So yeah, UTC is often, lauded. I don't know. People think of UTC as the magical solution, right? You convert your dates or times to UTC, and the world will be a better place, right? And you won't have any of these problems I mentioned, but this is not true. UTC has a different set of problems. Some of them are the same, but a different set of problems. And a very simple use case is the police force from Belgium. Yes, thank you. Once they're going to convert everything to UTC, right? A year later, it doesn't work anymore, right? Like, why doesn't it work? Because the UTC dates they don't take into account that the time zone from a year ago was the same as the time zone as now, right? This is the thing that we just mentioned, right? This problem doesn't go away just because you went to UTC. It's basically just you're converting it to a different format, and that's it. It's not magic, right? So the second attempt is, okay, you know what? We're going to save the UTC dates, and we're going to save the cities for each date, right? So that way, when a new version comes out of the database, I can say, hey, what happened to Antwerpen? Right? What happened to Amsterdam or whatever? And I can just look it up. Oh, this needs to be updated or whatever. Does it work? Of course it doesn't work. Right? Why? Because the database, this is actually a funny story, and I'm going to tell it very fast. The database, it doesn't stay the same, right? Cities disappear, not cities disappear, but time zones disappear, and time zones come to existence, right? And this is a very funny story from the BBC. You can see it in the background there. This happened, I don't know, in 2011, right? Samoa and American Samoa, which are like two islands next to each other. You can swim from one to the other, I think. And they got into a fight, I guess, or whatever, and they decided to split time zones. So the first one went like UTC -11, and the other one went UTC +12, or they both were UTC +12, and then went to UTC -11, which is a 24-hour difference, which is very weird. How can you get that? I mean, I always thought the maximum was 24, but apparently not. So, and this, when this happened, if you look at the database for this moment, a new entry came into the database, right? So if you were still up, or if you plan to update your database with the old entry, you were going to be making a big mess. And this happens quite a lot, actually. And you can think about Ukraine, for example, where a lot of weird stuff is happening, right? You can think about America, where all the time this happens because Americans love each other, right? So that doesn't work either. I'm gonna skip this one because I don't have a lot of time. So what actually works is if you save the UTC date, you save the offset, which is basically the city, but you also save which version of this the database you're using, right? Because, like I said at the beginning of this section, at least, right? Time zone is about which version you're using, when are you talking about, right? You might as well, for example, let's keep it like this. But so that kind of works, and this isn't like foolproof either, right? It's like this only works if you keep updating everything. And if you read the original article by John Skeet, he actually advises to convert the dates back to their original dates, and then from the original date to convert it to UTC with the new rules. I think that has to do with the whole thing about cities disappearing or coming into existence and rising and whatever, right? So this is actually the fun part for me, at least. How many slides do I have? I have 15 slides in 7 minutes. I mean, it should work. So yeah, forensics. In forensics we care a lot about dates and times and the accuracy of dates and times and the truthfulness and whatever, for a lot of reasons. And this, come on, Jamo. Let's see. Yeah. Can you see the pointer? I hope not. Oh, you can see the pointer. Sure. All right. So this is from an actual case. My institute didn't work on this case. It's from the United States. You can find this on the internet. It's a very sad case, actually. I think a girl was being cyberbullied, and she ended up committing suicide. But what you see here, this is a timeline, and we call it a forensic timeline. And this is very important, right, to know when everything happened, right, in which order everything happened. And it can make a lot of difference if you look, for example, in the middle, October 20th, and then October 21st, right? If the dates for those two events aren't parsed correctly, and one of them comes after the other, that can make the difference between somebody being guilty and somebody, being declared innocent. So it's very important, and I blacked out that part because it's something you don't want to know, right? So this is, I'm going to skip this one. It's another timeline. I actually stole this title. The title of this talk, it was inspired by the title of this article by Jochem Metz. It's an excellent article. It's for 100% forensics, but you should still read it. It's excellent. He mentions a lot of cool stuff, which I didn't go into a lot of. But like the bottom, the couple, like the one at the bottom, like date and time manipulation, something you don't think about in normal context, but it's very important for forensics. Even in not forensics, actually. If you're running a web shop and somebody manages to manipulate DateTime, that's also something you should think about. 5 minutes, and I'm going to skip this one. I'm not sure if I should skip it. Yeah, I'm going to skip this one. Basically, the bottom line here, not all dates and times are strings. We always assume they're strings. We always assume they're parsable by DateTime formatter.parse or whatever, right? But all DateTime formats are binary. This is a very famous one. This is a DOS DateTime. And it basically translates to something like this. So this is 4 bytes, and every, I don't know, 5 bytes, approximately 5, 6-ish bytes mean something, right? And again, this is not pure forensics. The first time I came across something like this was for an old mainframe that I had to communicate with at a bank, I think. Not our bank, the other bank. So yeah. Excellent. I actually have time for questions. For one question, I think. Honorable mentions. I really like this project on GitHub. Somebody managed to create a whole file system on Outlook calendar. Why, I have no idea, but it's awesome. And this is an example. So this is the picture, and the picture gets converted to bytes, and this is how it's saved in your calendar, which is awesome. Again, no, this is really amazing, right? Let's see. This is a very cool article. When I was preparing for this talk, I bookmarked it, and I said to myself, I have to include some stuff from this article in the talk. I completely forgot about it. And this is a very long article. It has like 200 points, and then there's like a second article, which it's amazing. You just have to trust me. I forgot to add this slide, so I'm going to end with questions. Anybody? I have 2 minutes. I can't see, actually. Yes? No? Sorry? Is there any hope? That's a very good question. There is hope. There's a lot of hope. The thing is, I think the takeaway from this, for myself, is you don't trust that everything works out of the box, right? There's always corner cases. There's always that kind of stuff. And like I mentioned at the beginning, API design is very hard. API design is kind of like raising your children. You're raising your child for the future that doesn't exist yet. So how are you going to raise your child, right? And API design is the same. Somebody's going to use the API. The date API was designed like 27 years ago, and people are still using it. Do we really think that the original designers thought about all of that? Probably not. But is that a bad thing? Yeah, no. They did something amazing, right? So yeah, the hope is in you just have to check everything, right? And you have to understand how it works, I guess. Which goes against some of the principles of... no, okay. There is hope. Yes. Anybody else? I have 1 minute. I honestly can't see, so just shout. Just say it. You want to say something. All right. Thank you very much.